Have you ever finished a book and thought, will I ever feel this high again? Stories are just not a bunch of words put together. They have neurobiological effects on our brain. When we think about literature, more often than not, our brain goes directly towards what society perceives as the best books of all time. Thought-provoking pieces of literature that are hard to read and even harder to decipher. Most of them were written ages ago and nowadays are read to just give some status to the reader. And I don't want to be pretentious with this, but it's true. Like, I've read and also enjoyed plenty of the so-called best books of all time, and other books that are resurfacing in social media. It's interesting to see how social media has found its way through classic literature. It's funny. And I think it's good. It's good to see different points of views, even if they're from like ages ago. It's good. And even if you read something and you think, what have I read? You reread it, you realize that you haven't understood anything, you try to read it again and you realize that you're just too dumb for that piece of literature. If you happen to have stumbled a piece of literature like that, welcome to the club. You're not alone. As I was talking about being pretentious with the best books of all time that are difficult to read, they are objectively difficult. Yet a part of me has read some literature simply because I wanted to understand the meaning behind it. Because hey, the book is kind of popular and the people who talk about it seem to be so smart and I want to be part of the group. Yeah, that's forcing a group identity to reinforce a sense of self at its finest. A great example of what humans do to fit in while also being quirky and different. But hey, no need to cringe about it, okay? We all do this. Hi babies, welcome back to my channel. It's Paula, a psychology student, and today I want to dive into a spiral rabbit hole that I entered this week. And it was about books, because I read a book that I enjoyed a lot. Like, I didn't know about this book, and then a friend of mine was like, you need to read this book. And I was like, okay. I had no idea what the book was about. I picked it up, I started reading, had no expectations. The freaking most enjoyable book I've ever read. And it's not the book with the highest, most difficult meaning ever. It's not something that's life-altering, it's just good to read. And I want to know why. I wanted to know why I was so hooked on this particular book and not on others. Maybe because it wasn't hard, but the thing is, it was actually kind of hard. Like, it was written in the 19th century. The English, it's not the same. Then why? Why this book in particular? Why do we all have different favorites? Of course that in general, we have a consensus of what the best books of all time are, but why do we all have different favorites? And of course it's related to the idea that everyone's different and everyone has different tastes and different lives and different points of views. But I wanted to know why. The exact reason, the neuroscience behind it. So yeah, without further ado, let's buckle up and uncover what's going on with your favorites. Anyway, going back to books, last week I read my, to this day, favorite book. And of course, I didn't want it to end, yet I couldn't put it down either. I think most of us can relate to this feeling. And I also know that the reason why is dopamine. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. And no, it's not what you're thinking. Because 1, dopamine is not a hormone. And 2, dopamine doesn't give you pleasure. What it does is predict a future reward. Quick side note here, dopamine is a neurotransmitter. For instance, let's say you for some unknown reason are taking part into a race. Dopamine would be the motivational voice inside your head that's telling you that you're gonna win and that you are gonna keep going and you're doing so good. You can accomplish the task. Bear in mind, this is a highly simplified explanation of the neurotransmitter and its functions, and of course, it's much more difficult, different, and dopamine has many more functions than only pleasure seeking, which is not true, okay? Basically, our brains segregate dopamine before accomplishing the task, aka finishing the book in this case. And because we're literally getting high on dopamine and other hormones and neurotransmitters, by consequence, We paradoxically don't want to finish the book because we're high, we're addicted to feeling good. But if the book ends, the high will also end. Therefore, we don't want the dopamine to end, yet the dopamine is made to find an ending. Okay, so dopamine explains why I am attached, yet I don't want to finish the book. But that does not explain why The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton is my favorite novel. I've got to admit, this book is not the most life-altering, thought-provoking piece of literature out there. But it's just a book I happen to like a lot. So much so that my body secretes oxytocin. That's a hormone, not a neurotransmitter. Also known as the love hormone. So yeah, it's safe to say that we're chemically bonded to our favorite hobbies and favorite pieces of art in general and everything. For instance, your favorite subject. You're attached to it. That's why it's your favorite. And this could be because of a positive association our brains make with the object, in this case the novel, and the main reason behind the feeling of comfort we feel towards the book. It's a parasocial relationship, like the ones people say that happen in social media with people we don't truly know. The same happens with books and TV shows, movies. Talking about associations, maybe I do not only like the book, but also appreciate the good writing. Perhaps the story has something that triggers my self-concept. Ironically, this is a recurring theme in our channel. But the self-concept plays a huge role in how we perceive the world, aka we construct our reality, aka pick our favorites. When I first started reading the novel, I had no clue why I was so hooked on this story, but as I kept on reading, I realized something. Maybe I found 19th century New Yorkers relatable. I know it sounds weird, but bear with me. We humans, as much as we want to be perceived as unique and sometimes even misunderstood, we all go through the same feelings. We all go through the same shit. It's like, same shit, different circumstances. Everybody's circumstances, life experience, temper, personality, and all of that make different points of views, as there's people on the globe. Yet, the roots stem from a few feelings we all go through. Sadness, happiness, those are all shared feelings we all go through, at least the majority of us who are not diagnosed with a pathology. I'd even dare to say that we all go through more complex and covert feelings like loneliness, heartbreak, grief, and frustration, which, in my opinion, by the shameful connotation of those in our society, becomes a huge leverage tool for the benefit of some individuals who play with the psychological well-being of the uninformed masses. But hey, I cannot blame the uninformed masses because most people have no idea of the capacity our feelings have to take the wheel and drive off the cliff. And it's normal. Not everyone has a degree in neuroscience. Was I too dramatic with that example? Okay, maybe, anyway. Let's move on. That's why relatability is a huge thing. It makes us feel understood and aligned, listened. And that could be the theory why we get a sense of comfort when we read or just think about our favorite book. But I can't relate to the 19th century New York elite. What the fuck do I have in common with them? Feelings. And by no means does this imply that you must be exactly like the main character, for instance. But surely after some thinking, I found I do share some feelings with the characters of the novel. In the novel The Age of Innocence, Edith Wharton. I don't exactly know how it's pronounced. I should look it up in Google. Anyway, the author narrates with precise detail the societal issues of New York in the Gilded Age. And in this case, the protagonist, Newland Archer, is in a constant battle between falling into society's propriety and his desires. He had always been keen on the unwritten rules of New York, yet when he discovers how shallow and inauthentic his life is, he can't help but fantasize about what he truly wants and expects of his life. Archer slowly finds himself surrounded by unspoken rules and coerced by the society he himself has reinforced ever since he was born. For him, many things are wrong with his city's social landscape, yet he does nothing. He spends his whole life yearning for something that his decisions have stopped him from achieving. Of course, it's not only for him. His surroundings also make him miserable on the inside. He spends most of the novel resenting his wife because in his eyes, she's the reason why he cannot be truly happy. Newland finds the poor woman shallow and void of personality, as if she were a puppet of New York's morality. And that is funny. Her lack of critical thinking depletes him, and the position in which she's been placed is only an aggravator. And by the position she's been placed, I mean, I don't want to spoil the story to y'all guys, because it's really great to have no idea of what you're reading and just keep reading because you're hooked on the story. So I really recommend the novel to you. At the end of the day, Archer finds his old self unable to find the bravery to take action towards what would bring him joy, a recurring theme in his character, which is honestly sad. He desires to break from the chains of society and live freely with whom he wants to, yet he's constantly stopping himself for the sake of keeping his reputation on point. If you ask me, Edith uses irony brilliantly. At some point in the novel, his surroundings think that he and Olenska are having an affair, and instead of scrutinizing the man, they just look the other way and cover each other's shoulders. The scene is quite ironic if we take into account how Archer has spent the whole novel overthinking the possibilities he could take, yet he doesn't take any for fear of being seen by society. Yet society has already been expecting the worst and doesn't care that much. It is all in his head, and I fear becoming like Newland Archer. I don't want to be a victim of my own decisions to please an unpleasable society. And I don't want to end up with someone dull. It's a negative, honey, you don't. Full on knowing that there's someone else to whom I am more connected and understood by. I am panicked by knowing and not doing. And I don't want to get too Freudian, but the story relates to triggering experience I saw growing up, which have affected me. And after like a long time analyzing why I like this novel or I am just attached to it, I've realized that, oh, it's because it's triggering. Nice. Guys, there's no solution. Guys, I'm sure the relatability of the plot is not the only reason why I love it. And I dare to say that this satirical undertones paired with the highly analytical descriptions are the perfect combination for my entertainment. And it's another reason why the novel is my favorite so far. Also, the drama is extremely hooking, to the point where it feels like a movie, as if I weren't actively reading the story, but rather it was being given to me. This video wasn't originally somewhat of a review of the novel, but yet here we are. Can't help it. Sorry, not sorry, guys. Every single conversation I have ends up being about books. It's like the all roads lead to Rome. Okay, all my thoughts lead to books. It is what it is. I will just let it be. But yeah, when I like something, I just feel the need to share it to the world. That's what I'm doing here. Yay! Now I finished the book. And you know you've had a good time when you wonder if you'll ever enjoy a book as much as you have this one. We could say it's a mix of the author's gripping mastery and personal relatability. Because words are not just words. They have a neurobiological effect in our brain. Pathways that light up, memories that come up, associations that are made. And this leads me to wonder, which books have left you feeling this way? And if you've seen any pattern throughout your preferred choices of books. Because if I think of my top 5 books, they have some similarities. Yeah, they definitely do. And if you dig into it kind of makes sense. I hope you enjoyed this video and hope you have found some tools to understand better why you don't just randomly pick a book and it becomes your favorite. There's a meaning behind it, and it's all in our heads. And this is the interesting part of psychology and neuroscience. Hope you have a nice week. I'll see you in the next one. And as always, thanks to everyone who's been supporting the channel. I'm so thankful and so grateful. And if you have any idea, anything, I'm open to hearing your ideas, voices. Mwah. Bye.